The views, information or opinions expressed during the Journey podcast series are solely those of the individuals involved and does not represent Wise Words Imaging or any other company. Wise Words Imaging is not responsible and does not verify for accuracy. Any of the information contained in the podcast series is available from the respective owner. Enjoy the show. Joining me today on the journey is Jesus Eddie Camper. Jesus was born and raised in El Paso, Texas, and after 27 years of law enforcement experience, which we'll discuss, he retired from public service and transitioned his experience and expertise to the private sector as a mentor, consultant, and sounding board. He is also served as a chief deputy and chief of police on 2 different occasions. Welcome to the journey.
Well, thank you for having us. Appreciate it there, David. Appreciate it very much. Thank you.
Okay, no problem. Now, I'm going to start straight away. You was born and raised in El Paso, Texas, and you worked as a police officer. What made you become a police officer?
Well, I was born and raised here in El Paso, Texas, to a single parent, my mother, and I never really knew my dad. My dad left when I was 2. I was actually raised by my grandmother, and my role model was my uncle. And he was a police officer. So I kind of wanted to just emulate him and be like him. But in reality, I kind of found out that I really have a servant's heart. And I just wanted to be able to help people who were less, in situations that they could not help themselves. And I thought that being a police officer was a great calling. It was more of a calling than really wanting to do it. So I was excited about that.
Yeah, that sounds interesting. And it says, as a result of your last tour as a chief of police in a city impacted by racial divisions, you created and implemented the initiative No Colors, No Labels initiative. Now that's got me interested because obviously we talk about the current situation with Black Lives Matter. Is that similar to what you would say is Black Lives Matter, or was it your own?
No, so it was basically my own program. When I got hired to become the chief of police in that city, I was hired to change the culture. The culture was very racially divided, and I kind of make a little joke about it that they weren't going to hire another Caucasian. They were never going to hire an African American, so they settled for this little short caramel Mexican guy to come in and kind of change the culture. So I came in and I saw a lot of racial division, a lot of racial issues. The community did not get along with the police. The police did not get along with the community. The police actually didn't get along with City Hall, which is really weird. There was a blue flu at the time. And I saw a lot of division. And I came in and I created No Colors, No Labels, which was a program that was designed to remove the preconceived notion that the police were racially motivated. And we did that by creating equality among all of us. And Black Lives Matter was an organization that we worked closely with. This was a program, an initiative that I created, and we did work with Black Lives Matter. We worked with NAACP. We worked with the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. We worked with different organizations to try to bridge that gap of racial division, and we did that by having community cultural. Whoa! I just lost my microphone. We did that by creating cultural awareness meals. And just implementing different things with the community. We implemented the Cool Cops ice cream truck, which was a program that I created, partnership with Bluebell Ice Cream, and we had a police truck that we decorated into an ice cream truck, and we'd go out and distribute free ice cream to the kids and build relationships with them. So that's what No Colors, No Labels was about.
So I can relate to that. Since being in America, I've seen more racial and discrimination against certain things. And when I used to be in England, where I came from in England was very how can I put it, anti-racial. You know, if anyone did come in that was different, it was a problem that was always picked up upon, and people were quick to judge. And I felt as I grew up, that was wrong because, you know, there were so many opportunities for people to be learning from these. But because where I come from, it's a small area in comparison to the bigger scheme of things in England. It was not ready for it, if you know what I mean. And I just wish there was time for people to say, yes, I understand. I understood because I had that opportunity in school. And that's the example I'll give. When I was in school, we only had two people, I think, out for all the school. That was ethnic diverse, you know, different.
Mm-hmm.
And we had to learn this, and I'll say their names because, you know, one was called Nigel and one was called Abdu.
Mm.
And they, you know, one was born with a white mother and one was actually from Africa. The one from Africa found it more difficult because obviously he had the South African, you know, the African accent. He
Right.
had the African mom, he had the African dad, his brother was African. And he had more difficulties because people picked on him more. After people got on with because they understood he had a white mum, he had a white, you know, black dad. So, but when someone new like Nigel came in, it changed the whole ball game, and there was a lot more bullying as a consequence.
Right. So yeah, that was a very big culture shock for me as well. You know, being in El Paso, Texas, we're very diverse. We're a very diverse community. We have all ethnic groups because we're home to Fort Bliss, one of the largest military bases in the United States. And you know, we've got Caucasians, we've got whites, we've got blacks, we got Asians, we got Koreans, we had the German Air Force Base. We had everybody here. And then we have international bridges where we have a lot of immigrant crossings. We have everything from the richest to the poorest people here. So we were very diverse, you know. And when I went to that community, it was a big culture shock because you know I have heard about discrimination and racism towards African Americans, but I had never actually been discriminated against myself, you know. So when I first got there, I was being referred to as a spick, as that greasy Mexican, as you know. It was very, very weird. So for the 3 years that we were there, it was those 3 years almost felt like if you can imagine 3 years underwater. That's almost like impossible to deal with, you
Yeah,
know. But we made a lot of changes with No Colors, No Labels. We made a lot of improvements. We got the community together. We lowered crime by 20%. We implemented ComStat, which is predictive-based policing. We did a whole lot of good things, even though the department wouldn't support it, because that was the biggest critic I had, was the police department. 95% Caucasian, 1% Hispanic, 1% African American, and 2% everything else. So it was a little hard, but you know, it's you bring up a really good point. Racism is something that shouldn't be tolerated. We shouldn't have to deal with it, and it's something that you're not born with. It's something that you learn as you go through, you know. And I just wonder, you know, why society, after so many years of inclusion, hasn't learned to deal with the fact that inside we're all the same. We bleed red. We all have hearts. We have kidneys. We got lungs. We got a brain. Some better than others. But the only difference is the color of our skin. Now, could you imagine how boring it would be if we all looked the same? That would be kind of boring. It'd be like
I
going to
know.
the grocery store and just picking out, seeing the oranges, and they're all orange, and you just, doesn't matter.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. I get that. So it says, thing goes on to say, NCNL provided a safe community for all citizens. Is that the same sort of thing? What you're talking about? I know it says in your bio, so that's why I'm just taking
Yeah,
it
yeah.
out.
So NCNL is No Colors, No Labels. It was just a shorter way of saying No Colors, No Labels is NCNL.
Yeah.
So it was No Colors, No Labels, and what we did is we didn't care what skin color you were, or anything like that. I mean, one of the biggest compliments that I had during my time as the police chief there, and during the time that I was running the No Colors, No Labels initiative, was that I had an individual who was a convicted felon, had done his time in prison, had come out and had changed his life around. You know, he wanted to do better things and do different things, and I accepted him. He came in, and he actually became a very good friend of mine. and he helped us do things. And a lot of people kind of looked at me like, "You're a police chief, you're a police officer. Why are you including this felon?" And I'm like, "Because he's paid his debt to society. He's paid his debt to society. It's his second chance." And I mean, all of us in our lives, we've done things that we're not proud of, whether we got caught or didn't get caught, or I mean, all of us, we have things that we regret in life, and we've all been given a second chance, or we've done something to move on. So that's what No Colors, No Labels was all about, was moving forward. That's the type of mentality that I have, is that everybody deserves a second, heck, even a third, sometimes even a fourth chance before you get it right.
Yeah.
I mean, Bill Gates or Steve Jobs, I mean, how many chances did they get before they got it right?
Yeah, totally. It's like even before, after Steve Jobs, it's like Tim Cook. I will use Tim Cook. He didn't get it right when he first came into the job because he was new to the job.
Exactly.
So it's about development over here. So totally get that. So you are a firm believer in diversity, and that a workforce should mirror the community that they serve. Is that a message you would say to any place of work, place of, enforcement, anywhere? Would you say working in diversity, which will suit everyone, will be a key to a good working relationship?
Oh, absolutely. I think that the more people, the different types of people that you have, everyone's going to have a different idea, a different concept, a different rationale of how to do things. And the more people you bring to the table that are different, the more possibility and chances you have of having a successful program, because you include everybody, it becomes inclusive, and we start pushing away that racism and stuff like that. So I think it's very important to have diversity in the workplace, regardless of whether it's in law enforcement, in anything. I mean, so for instance, like if you go to, and this is just speaking from like the older Hispanics, the older Mexicans, like my grandmother, she would go to the hospital or the doctor, but she wanted to be seen by a Mexican doctor, because he understood Mexicans. I was like, okay, grandma, but there was a Mexican doctor, in case you didn't feel comfortable with a white doctor or a male, or a woman. Sometimes they don't feel comfortable with a male doctor. They'd rather have a female doctor. So that includes all the diversity. And this is where you get the opportunity to have more people included and be able to help more people out. If you have, basically, if your organization mirrors your community, that helps your community move forward a lot easier.
I understand. So I'm saying something off the script now. What was your biggest inspiration when you was growing up, and why?
My biggest inspiration for not screwing up?
Yeah.
I screwed up a lot. I made a lot of mistakes in my life. But my biggest inspiration for not screwing up is that I didn't want to actually prove my family right. When I say that, I was born to a single parent, my mom, but her brothers and sisters, my aunts and uncles, a lot of them, with the exception of one aunt, kind of looked at me as the black sheep, because my mother was a single mother. She had an 8th grade education. She wasn't, in most instances, my mother would be considered, poor and a non-successful person, while my aunts and uncles were all professionals, educated, family, husband, wife, husband, kids, yada, yada, yada. And they all thought that I wasn't going to accomplish anything in my life. I had an uncle who at one time, may he rest in peace, even though, he rest in peace, I guess. But, he even said, well, as long as as long as Jesus doesn't end up in prison or, selling drugs, as long as he has a job at McDonald's as a manager, that's the best we can hope for him. And I was like, wow, really? Like, thanks, man. Like, that's what you think of me. And you know what? In all reality, I've actually become the most successful person in our family. I mean, I got a 20-year career in law enforcement that I retired to go become a chief of police. I've been a chief of police twice. I've been a state director. I'm currently in the process of releasing my new book that comes out here on July 4th. I own 2 companies. I'm completing my Ph.D. So I guess the biggest reason I didn't screw up was because I didn't want to prove them right. And you know what? It took me 48 years to realize that I had nothing to prove to anybody other than to myself. So now my biggest inspiration about not screwing up is so I don't make myself look like a jackass. Even though I've done that quite a bit.
Yeah. But would you say you still make mistakes now, even if you don't want to admit it?
No, you see, and that's the thing. That's the thing that sets me apart from a lot of people. I've made a lot of mistakes. I'm going to continue to make mistakes. And the day that I stop making mistakes is even the day I die, I'll probably make a mistake, you know? Mistakes are just part of life, and that's where you learn. If you're not making mistakes, if you're not failing at things, then that just basically means you're not trying hard enough, you know? And it's funny because, like I said, I'll always admit when I'm wrong. I don't like to admit it. But I will, just because I'm wrong. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong.
You sound so like me when I was younger. So it's the saying you've now most recently served as Executive Director for the Council on Law Enforcement Education and Training for Oklahoma State as Director. What was that experience like?
Well, that experience was really, it was an interesting experience as well, because I was brought in as a culture change agent. I was brought in to change the law enforcement culture of Oklahoma, which was kind of a John Wayne kick the door down type of policing. And as you all know, that kind of policing is no longer acceptable in the United States. It should have never been acceptable, but now it really isn't. So my job there was to make sure that I licensed all the police officers in Oklahoma, that they met the requirements to be a police officer. We also had the training academy for the police officers at my facility. Oklahoma has one training academy where all the police officers come to. And it was my responsibility to write a curriculum for the 21st century policing, which is based on the 6 pillars, 6 basic pillars, and basically boil down to procedural justice. And procedural justice is the golden rule of just making sure you treat others the way you want to be treated. And, more de-escalation, more talking, less violent, trying to understand mental health issues more. So that's what that was all about. However, unfortunately, in reality, the state of Oklahoma was not ready to change. And the direction I wanted to go to, which is the direction I was hired to go in, I guess 2 years into it, they kind of changed their mind and they wanted to go in a different direction. So I opted to, at that time, just said, you know what, I've been doing this for 27 years, law enforcement for 27 years. It's time to retire and go do something I want to do. So I called it quits. December 20th was my last official day as a law enforcement officer. Been retired since then, and I'll tell you what, David, life has been fantastic for me, man. I'm happy. I'm making more money than I've ever made in my entire life. Just doing both my companies and the consulting that I do. I'm having a blast being on people's podcasts and just learning and, meeting new people. So that's what that was all about.
That's amazing. So you hold your master's degree in criminal justice and social administration. Mm-hmm. It says you're working on I don't know how old it's been updated, but it says that you're currently working on a Ph.D. in public service leadership.
Yes.
Do you think the leadership is because you've always been a chief and you still want to have that instinct in you?
The main reason I wanted to get the PhD is, and here we go again, it was because I felt the need that I had to prove people wrong. I went after the PhD because the PhD basically makes you an expert. It labels you an expert in your field. Regardless of all the years of experience you have, nobody can. With that PhD, you're an expert in your field, period. You're a doctor and you can't go any further. That's it, So the reason was basically just to kind of prove people wrong again. But in reality, once I kind of got over that, as I mentioned earlier, I'm going after the PhD because I think that people are really lacking a sense of reality of to what leadership really is. Everybody has, there is a definition of leadership in the dictionary, that's to inspire, lead, coordinate and a group of people to follow you into a vision or something that they cannot see. Yet, I think that people get confused because leadership is more of a perspective. My ideal of what a leader is going to be different from what your vision is. And not to get political, but we can make this very simple, is just to say the last 4 years, there's half the nation thought that Donald Trump was the world's greatest leader, and the other half of the nation thought he was the worst leader ever. So who determines what leadership is in that definition? I mean, did he meet the definition in some aspects? In some aspects he didn't, just like we all do, One of the issues that I got myself into, not trouble, but one of the issues that I had is that I always do the right thing because it's the right thing to do, David. And when I take over an organization, I don't go out and party with my subordinates. I don't drink beer. I don't hang out with them. I don't. My job is to come in and I have a mission to do. I have to lead, and I have to set an example, and I have to make sure that the vision is accomplished. And some people believe that I'm a horrible leader because of that. Because, well, the old chief, man, me and him, we used to chase women and drink beer together all day long. And it's like, yeah, no, that's not going to happen. And, they would get in trouble. And then like, well, the other chief, he wouldn't do anything. Oh, the other chief isn't here. I'm here. So I think that's why I now that I'm still pursuing a Ph.D. and I'll be done here in March of 2022, is based more on the fact that I just want to be able to get on a podcast like this with you or anybody else, or go do a leadership conference and talk about what the true meaning of leadership is. Because while you have a definition, that's not really the definition, because it's open to interpretation. Everybody has a different opinion of what a leader is.
Yeah, I remember when I was in England, for so long, I used to label, look at me, I'm important. But the fact was, I was told never to have that label. You'll get recognized as you are for doing what you are. And you don't have to put that label on yourself. And so that's my mindset. For so long, I was in the mindset, one way thinking. But then towards the later half of me leaving England, I realised it can't be one mind. It's got to be open mind all round. And I think that's what is key to being a good leader, is being able to understand the clear picture, not the one-side vision.
Absolutely, David. I totally agree with you. I mean, you have to be able to look at the vision all around you at a 360 or a 180 plethora, not just not just in one direction. So absolutely.
So you're the owner of America's Best Strategic Security Group now and leading through adversity. Has that been the blessing for you since lockdown, since you left the police force?
Well, so actually America's Best Strategic Security Group has been my company for almost 20 years. It's actually been in business for almost 20 years. However, it wasn't formulated as a company. It was just basically me doing security consulting and stuff, on the side. And in 2017 is really when I incorporated. I made it an LLC. And we added, security guard service, private investigations, backgrounds, all sorts of stuff, to the agency. So I'm the CEO and owner, and right now we have about, a little over, 70 employees who work for us around the. We're only local. We're in El Paso, and of course, as far as the guard services. However, my consulting has taken me all over the world, which has been really exciting, and it has been awesome. Of course, with the global pandemic, all of my world traveling has been divulged to Zoom, and I no longer get to travel because of the pandemic. And then leading through adversity was, like I said, something that I just wanted to do based on the fact that I think people are not totally sold or convinced on what leadership is. So leading through adversity is a leadership development program that I've created, where we consult with major CEOs and presidents and leaders of different countries. I mean, hey, we even have a couple of restaurant managers and owners who are part of leading through adversity, and we give them leadership classes and ideas, and we're kind of a sounding board. We have one CEO that every time he has an idea, before he tells anybody about it, he calls me up and he says, "Hey, look, Eddie, I'm thinking about doing this. I'm thinking about doing that. What do you think?" And I'm like, well, here's the pros, here's the cons, which ones are better, let's outweigh them. And then he makes a decision based on our conversation, and then he takes it off. So that's what leading through adversity does. And it prepares the future leaders of tomorrow, today, and it gives current leaders a sounding board to bounce ideas off of.
Yeah. Would you share that anywhere? So if you was to say no more, pandemic, no more anything, would you say I'm going to go to, for example, England? Would you go to France? Would you go to areas that you would reach out to in your own mind, or would you go because you would like to see the experience, to see what it's like?
Oh, definitely. I mean, I would definitely love to go to England and get to live that experience. I haven't had anybody invite me out there for a consultation or anything like that. It's usually easier to go out there when somebody else is paying for your visit, especially if they're bringing you in to consult on their business and they fly you in and stuff. But it is definitely on my bucket list to definitely travel down to Europe and see the European countries and stuff like that. I find them amazing and just, so inspiring, and so it's definitely something I'm looking forward to doing at some point.
Okay, for very last question, what advice would you give anyone who's listening or watching this? What would you tell them?
The one thing I would tell everybody is learn from my mistake. If you have a vision and nobody else understands it, that's because that vision was given to you, not to anybody else. And as long as you can see that vision or that goal of where you're headed or where you're going, then do everything possible to make it happen. Manifest it. If you think you can do it, you're definitely going to be able to do it. Don't let anybody else's opinion of you define you, and you define yourself, and just keep moving forward. And it took me 48 years to figure that out, and I finally figured it out. And as you can see, I'm just happy finally for a change.
And last, because you spoke about it earlier, so what people will see, what is your book called when it comes out, and when it's available, and where is it?
Yes, so it'll be, you can get it hard copy, paperback, you can get a digital copy of it. It's going to be, if you just go down to Barnes & Noble, the website, or go down to Barnes & Noble or Amazon or any of the places where you can buy a book. The book is called Unmasking Leadership. A true story about leadership, and it'll be available July 4th. It'll be available July 4th. So I know that's kind of a long time from now, but we're just down to putting the final touches on it, the editing and the book cover. But it's called Unmasking Leadership.
Thank you. And Ashish, it's been a pleasure exploring your journey. Let's hope it will continue helping others, because everyone who does help has more of a journey, because obviously it's a bigger tree, as I call it. So I hope it does well for you. I hope your book does well as well. And thank you for being part of the journey.
Well, thank you, David. I appreciate letting me be here.
Thank you.
Awesome.